standardly, we're going to teach you about environmental controls and how to avoid exposure to these types of things that you're allergic to, how to clean up your environment. But some patients need that level of skin testing and that allergy drops or allergy shots, what we call antigen therapy, to help desensitize them so that they're functional.
Welcome to the Healing Reset, a podcast aimed at providing hope in your body's ability to heal and then maintain that health. Contrary to modern day belief, contrary to what people tell you today, you are just amazing. You're designed to heal. You're designed to stay well. I understand that you don't feel that always in your body, but keep telling yourself that you are designed to heal. I'm Jess, your host. Today, we're talking about something that people often don't think they need to heal from. Today, we're going to discuss allergies. We have on Dr. Seymour. She is a family and functional medicine doctor. She's going to take us through the weird, winding journey of allergies. The sudden onset of pediatric allergies is kind of wild to me, but also seasonal allergies. We've been living with this stuff forever. So why is it happening? How can we address it? Is it preventable? Welcome to the show, Dr. Seymour. Thanks for answering some of our questions.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the whole body, root cause medicine. And so when I was reading up on allergies, this specific statement stuck out to me, and I've never really thought about allergies like this. As a result of an underlying immunological issue, allergies increase the inflammatory burden and put people at risk for developing other conditions. Is that true?
Yes. So when I started doing functional medicine, inflammation is just a general term that's used that you have inflammation in your body, and you can measure that by blood tests. And we did a lot of cardiometabolic testing that could look at inflammatory markers. So patients would come into me and say, we'd go over their lab results and I would say, well, you've got a lot of inflammation. And what could cause that? And there's only four major categories that cause that. It's either infections. So I'd ask them, did you have the flu, or did you have a strep throat, or did you have a sinus infection? Do you have any forms of allergies that you're aware of? Or did you have a trauma or an injury or surgery? And then the last inflammatory marker is caused by toxins. And so in functional medicine, I take that approach to address those types of issues. And the allergy component was something that I really dived deep into. There are many ways that you can assess and test for allergies to confirm whether a patient does or does not have them. And then there are different treatments that are available to help. And there are a multitude of allergies that patients can have. Food allergies, they can be sensitive to certain chemicals. Obviously, any seasonal allergies, if it's a pollen, which means if it's a grass, a weed, a tree, a mold, it changes with the seasons, it changes with the humidity. In the spring, when the trees are blooming and blossoming and the wind is blowing and it's blowing in the wind and you're inhaling it, if you get an allergy like a sinus infection or sneezing or coughing, then that's common symptoms that people experience that they would say, I have an allergy to this. But food allergies are a little bit different.
Mine hit me every June, seasonal, and my eyes get watery. I get a little sneezy. I've always just kind of assumed that that's just fine. That's normal. It's normal. Everyone has seasonal allergies. So by reading that statement, it makes me think there is a chronic inflammation response happening in my body. And it's been going on for a long time. Is that fair?
Fair to say if you feel inflamed or if you have blood work that confirms you have an elevated inflammatory markers, and or if we test you for allergies. So let's say, for example, you're allergic to, and down here in Texas, have ragweed in the deep summer, the hot times, July, August especially, and September. And it kind of goes through October because it's still really warm here. And then our winter cold seasons come. So if July is when it occurs, I would start thinking, what region of the country are you in? What are those types of pollens that are blooming and blossoming and blowing in the wind at the time? And then, yes, do you experience symptoms? So most patients' symptoms with allergies, especially seasonal, are mild. And you can easily take antihistamines, you can take Benadryl, Zyrtec, Allegra, Claritin, lots of different medications. Some people use nasal steroid sprays. There's just a lot of just simple treatments that are over the counter that help combat the symptoms. And most people do okay. But there are some patients that have chronic allergies that get sinus infections, and that leads to antibiotics and steroids and surgeries. So we want to try to be preventative and prevent them from getting those types of infections recurrently.
So there's different types. There's like a spectrum of allergies, is what I hear you saying. Mild to we're getting some chronic allergies. Is there a difference between food allergies and environmental, or does it all stem from the same gut response?
Well, it stems from an immune response, and majority of your immune system is in your gut. Environmental allergies can be anything in the environment, which includes your food.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we'll tell patients, any allergist or any doctor that treats allergies, your first thing is going to be if you're allergic or sensitive to something, avoid it. So if you have an allergy to cats, don't have 10 cats. Don't let them sleep in your bed, right in your face. And then you wake up in the morning, you have swollen eyes and you're congested and you're itchy and you're tired and you go, man, I don't feel good. We have an allergy to cats. I'm not saying you have to get rid of all your cats, but try to keep them out of your room. Try to have air filters. Try not to have 10 cats. So it just depends on what the incitant is or the variable that you feel you start to get symptoms from. Now, some people have chronic symptoms that are vague, like fatigue and cough, and it may not be an infection. And so we're trying to look at, well, what could be causing their symptoms, and that's why we do allergy testing to confirm and see what they're allergic to.
Is there specific tests that you run that listeners could ask for when it comes to advocating for themselves in their doctor's office?
Absolutely. So, a lot of times with kids, we'll do a blood draw that's called a RAS test, RAST. And that's an easy test for babies and kids because, oh, and even adults. If you are taking antihistamines, then you can get your blood drawn, and the lab has a way of scrubbing off the antihistamine and testing the blood to see for multiple. I mean, you could test for 300 plus types of things, foods and chemicals and pollens and dogs and cats and you name it, all kinds of things you can test for in just a blood draw. Now, the sensitivity and the specificity of that testing is not the best. We do have patients that do those blood tests, or you can do a little finger stick test and it'll say you're allergic to all these types of foods. And some of those patients will avoid those foods, but they'll still have symptoms. So, again, it's not a perfect test. Most patients will go see their allergist or their immunologist or their family doc or internal medicine doc if they do allergy testing. And they'll do something called prick testing, where they take a board with a lot of little bitty needles and they prick the forearm or they prick all over the back. And they can test, 30 to 60 things at once and circle if you have a wheal or a red spot. And then again, tell you to avoid it or put you on allergy shots or allergy drops.
That was a question I had. The difference between conventional treatment versus a functional approach to allergies. So, how would you treat compared to maybe just a conventional allopathic allergist?
Sure. So we do a form of testing called intradermal provocation neutralization. So what we do is we only test one thing at a time. And the difference between that and the prick testing that most conventional allergists do is intradermal is deeper. And when you go into the dermis of the skin, you're not only taking into account the skin organ, which is the dermis, but you're
Yeah.
also taking into account the blood vessels, the neurological system, and the immune system. So some of these patients may be getting tested and they may not have the typical, what I call Zyrtec commercial of symptoms, the coughy, wheezy, itchy, sneezy, rashy, congested, watery eye.
Everyone's seen that commercial. I
Right,
can
right.
almost play it in my head.
Right. So then you go take your Zyrtec. But a lot of patients are taking conventional treatments like antihistamines, steroids, and some of them are not getting better. So that's when it takes another level of care. And so our testing is one at a time because we don't want 30 or 60 things at once. And if you're allergic to 15 out of those and you're having symptoms, there's no way to know which one it is.
Yep.
And again, standardly, we're going to teach you about environmental controls and how to avoid exposure to these types of things that you're allergic to, how to clean up your environment. But some patients need that level of skin testing and that allergy drops or allergy shots, what we call antigen therapy, to help desensitize them so that they're functional. So some people, if you're allergic to let's say, grasses, and you live in the hill plains grassy area and you can't function because you're congested and you're sleepy and you're coughing and you're sneezing and you're tired and your eyes are itching. If those medications aren't working, then that's where you'd need that type of treatment and therapy. The other thing that conventional doctors usually do are prescribe medications, which sometimes are indicated, but functional doctors usually try to prescribe natural supplements. So quercetin is a natural supplement that patients can use. There's a product called histodao, which stands for diamine oxidase, which is an enzyme that helps break down histamine, which is the mediator that is released when you get exposed to allergies. So when you have an allergy, you release histamine in your body, and histamine creates a response in your nose, your blood vessel, your eyes, your skin. And if you don't like the rash or the hives or the sneezing or the snot or the pressure in your sinuses or ears or the watery eyes because they're
Yeah.
itching, you go take an antihistamine
Yeah.
medication. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess what I'm trying to decipher is it sounds like sometimes these can be band-aid approaches, but like it sounds like it's okay to turn to some of these over-the-counter medications in the initial fight of allergies if they're pretty mild. And then
Correct.
just to give you some relief from that current assault, all the time understanding that we're constantly trying to bring our body to the best space. So adjusting different things. But what I think I heard most from you is I always thought, no, I need to be exposed because I need my body to learn how to deal with this pollen. So I need to be around pollen. And what I hear you saying mostly is like, no, 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 you do need to take away that assault on your body, give your body a time to heal, relax, and then work through some things, maybe through a functional doctor that can help you combat it and heal your immune system.
Well, correct. So some of our severe patients that have allergies to everything under the sun, sometimes they physically have to change their environment. So if you live in a moldy, I would say the armpit of Texas, Houston, where it's humid, hot,
Yeah.
flooded, you may not do as well if you're sensitive and allergic to mold. And so some patients will say, well, I'm going to move to Arizona or I'm going to move to New Mexico. Why? Because, yeah, there's more dust out there, there's more sand, but there's less humidity. The air is usually cleaner and there's less mold growth. So a lot of patients do well. But most people are not going to get up and leave their work and change their kids' school
Yeah.
unless they really have a need to change their environment. So, what the allergy treatments and the allergy testing and the allergy shots do is help someone be functional. So, if the grass levels are really high and they're allergic, they can take their antigens and help desensitize them so that their immune system isn't creating this horrible inflammatory response. Plus, maybe try over the counter antihistamines or steroids or try natural things like histodao or quercetin, high levels of vitamin C for an antioxidant, and different nutrients that help support their immune system so that they're able to function when spring is here and the grass counts are high or whatever the season and whatever the allergy is.
Now I have two young kids, allergy free thus far, but so many kids that so many of my friends' kids have a peanut allergy, and a lot of them have almost like worked themselves out.
Mhm.
Why is there this onset? And maybe it's just because I have young kids, I'm seeing it as an onset or this uptick in peanut allergies, egg allergies, or just these baby, toddler intolerances.
Yes, so peanuts, that's an interesting thing. I'm an 80s baby, and thank goodness my mother did not use baby oil on me. But what a study that I read, oh, probably 10 years ago, why is the peanut allergies going up? Why are kids more sensitive? In the 80s and the 90s, up until the 2000s, baby oil was being used as a, moisturizer essentially for dry skin on a baby. And that baby oil was processed and its source is from peanuts. So there's a correlation or a connection there that maybe all these children are getting food allergies specifically to peanuts because they're getting exposed to it. Even though they're not ingesting peanuts and peanut butter when they're a baby, it's getting on their skin.
I think a lot of times people fail to really like process the fact that skin is an organ and what you put on your skin enters into your body. It's not this impermeable barrier. Like you put something on your skin, it enters into your body.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying is, the type of testing that we do, it checks the dermis and the immune
Yeah.
system. And so if you understand that, you're exactly right. It is not just a barrier to keep pathogens and things out. It does have a physical presence that's a barrier, but it's also your immune system. There are dendritic cells and different types of cells within your skin that interpret what touches it. What's the temperature? Is it hot? Is it cold? Does it damage the skin cells? And then you get an immune response. And that's why you get hives if you have an allergy. And the worst allergy to ever have is something that's so severe that you get to anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis is where you can get immediate, within 30 seconds, you get hives, your throat and tongue swell, it closes, you feel like you can't breathe. It's a terrifying experience. And so we always want to keep kids out of anaphylaxis. So if a
Yep.
child had anaphylaxis to peanuts, that's why the schools are saying you do not bring any nuts in the cookies or the trail mix or whatever snacks you're bringing or whatever lunch you're bringing. Don't bring peanuts because there's such a prevalence of peanut allergy, and you would feel horrible. Just daunting if a poor child died or had a severe anaphylaxis episode within your presence at work, at school, if you're a teacher, if you're a student. So I do understand avoidance, but that's why the antigen therapy helps and the allergy shots work. The allergy drops help you because you can control not eating peanuts and not being exposed. You can't control what's outside,
Yeah.
especially if you live in a real green, trees, rich nature environment.
What percentage of people, if you had to put a number on, can grow out of their allergies? I think of kids growing out, maturing out of a peanut allergy.
I would say probably upwards of 75 to 80 plus percent. You'll see a lot of children, especially if you take care of kids in pediatrics. I'm family medicine. I take care of newborns all the way up to the geriatrics. So the whole spectrums of life and life cycles. I've been doing this for 20 years now. So I have babies that I've delivered that are now, well onto adulthood.
Yeah.
And you would hear patients say, if as they're adults, I used to have severe asthma and my asthma's better. I don't need an inhaler. I don't take steroids. I don't use my albuterol medication. Or I used to have really bad allergies, but I've seen to grow out of those. And so, yeah, I would say a high percentage of patients do grow out of their allergies, but then you still have that subset of population that say, nope, I've been allergic to cats my whole life. I still can't have a cat, or I still can't eat a peanut, or I get symptoms every time spring comes because this is what's in the air.
So to that population, what is your treatment playbook? Where do you start? Someone who is actively pursuing, wanting to get better, wanting to heal, where do you meet them?
First thing I talk about, foundational with any allergy, is avoidance. And again, that's using the thought that you actually can avoid it. If you can take it out of your life, take away exposure, then voila, that's foundation for avoidance and for lessening the allergy response. But if it's environmental, you may not be able to, be it molds, grasses, weeds, trees, your dog. I'm not going to tell you go get rid of your
Yeah.
dog. Now, if you have anaphylaxis, we might have to talk about, getting another homeowner for the dog. You don't have to go euthanize it, but find another place for it to
Yeah.
live. So again, it goes back to the severity of symptoms and such. So that's foundational number one, avoidance. The second thing we do is the allergy testing to really assess what's going on. What are they sensitive to or allergic to? Do they get a skin allergy or a will? And then the need for allergy shots or antigen therapy to help desensitize them so they can function.
Okay, so we did number one and number two, but in number two, I have a question. Do most people know what they're allergic to? Are most people like, it's this?
Well, yeah, yeah, they'll definitely come in and they'll say, if I eat this, I get diarrhea, or if I eat
Yeah.
this, I break out in hives, or if I get around cats and I'm allergic to them, I get all the Zyrtec commercial symptoms. So they'll tell you, I'm allergic to this specific thing. And if it's something they can't live without or can't avoid, then we're going to tell them to skin test it to see, number one, how sensitive they are, and then to go on an antigen to try and help desensitize them so they can function.
So one, avoidance. Two would be allergy testing. Three would be antigen therapy.
Mhm. Four is also nutritional supplements that we help to support the immune system. And like I say, quercetin is one, histo-DAO is one, vitamin C is one. So we really try to balance their antioxidant capacity, decrease their inflammation, and again, try to help with that histamine response. A lot of these patients will have conditions called mast cell or mast cell activation syndrome, and the mast cell is basically this cell that I always tell my patients that it spills its guts and it releases all this histamine in your bloodstream. And so when the histamine hits the receptor in your body, that's what causes mucus or a rash or itching, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. Histamine does a lot of stuff in your body.
Huh. Never really thought about that release.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So that like from a cellular level, it kind of gives a visual of what's happening.
Yes. Hmm. Yeah.
What about diet?
Diet is extremely important. We'll really encourage patients to understand there are certain foods that create inflammation just based on the way that they are made, grown, processed. So we'll encourage patients in order to have a clean environment. That means not just a good living and work environment, but clean air. Patients that live in the city are exposed to a ton of chemicals and toxins, and the air is just not good, and you're breathing that in, and that's why some children have worse asthma in cities with a lot of pollution. So we'll tell them to try their best to clean their air up. If you live in the city, then an air filter would be great in a room or in your house or in your bedroom to help filter the particulate matter out of the air. The other thing we'll say is eat clean foods. So I'm really encourage organic foods, non-GMO foods, practice certain elimination diets of highly allergenic
Mhm.
foods. Those could be corn, those could be gluten, those could be dairy, those could be soy. But a lot of patients say, but I want to drink milk or I want to eat cheese or I want to eat bread. And so again, we can verify with them by skin testing the foods to show, look, you have an allergy to this. Look, it caused this kind of symptom when we tested you. Maybe you
Take
should
it
avoid.
seriously and
Mhm.
cut it out. I mean, you listed those foods and I felt like they were pretty tame. I feel like a lot of people are like, I want to go to McDonald's. I am going to eat pizza on Friday nights. I'm going to go to the movies and get a bucket of popcorn, right? Like we
Right.
live in this constant access, easy access to
High inflammatory
bad
foods.
food.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, I'm like, if you guys are listening, I'm with you, right? Every now and then I just want some ice cream.
Mhm. Well, so here's the thing. You could do something like maybe a 2-week, what they call elimination diet. Maybe just for 2 weeks to go paleo diet. Don't eat any grains, just meats and veggies, organic foods, fruits, and just do that. And you'll eliminate a lot of the highly allergenic and inflammatory type foods. If you feel better in 2 weeks, there's your answer that you're
Keep doing
probably
it.
something. Now, does it mean you can't ever have a bucket of popcorn?
Yeah.
No, but do you wanna eat that every day? Probably not. Probably not.
I guess to round this out, I'm raising two little girls. And my biggest thought is how do I prevent some of these things? How do I prevent them from getting this chronic inflammatory response? Advice on prevention for those of us who are just like, okay, we might not have serious allergies, but ourselves, we don't want them, or we're raising the next generation, trying to keep them as healthy as possible.
To me, it really comes back again to the general umbrella of it's your environment. Have a clean home. Be careful about using pesticides and herbicides in your house to spray for the bugs and the weeds in your front yard that your little children go outside and play and roll in and lay on barefoot. These are the kinds of things we're thinking about. What kind of foods do you feed your children? Is it all processed fast food, or are they eating a salad every now and then? Are they getting a fruit once a day? Do they eat their vegetables at dinner time with their protein? Try to, introduce these things to your children and let them try and make it fun. Tell them broccoli looks like a tree and say, let's eat our trees today. Whatever you have to do to be It's hard to be a parent and it's hard to raise
Hmm.
children these days, but make it fun, and generally most kids will be open to it, especially when you start really young and they'll learn it. My kids know. We live in Texas and they play football, and I have 2 growing boys, and when they come home and they're sweaty and hot and smell like stinky boys, they're like, "Oh, mom, I'm so tired and just, oh, I just want to go take a shower, and this it's so hot. I'm sweating so much." And they know mom's response. I'll tell them, "You know what, son? It's a great detox because they're sweating all these toxins out.
Such
So
a
let them
great
go play.
detox.
Let them
Yeah.
detox. Let them sweat. Make sure they're hydrated. Make sure you give them some electrolytes." But
Yeah.
there's so many things you can do. And start with make sure their room is clean, low dust counts, careful with pets in the room, drink plenty of water, eat clean foods, and then you start growing up from there and advancing in your levels of how you take care of your body.
Hey, in this picture frame, for those of you listening on podcasts, the YouTube will show, but there is this beautiful snake plant. I think my husband counted 23 plants in this small house of ours. Is there value added outside of just the joy they bring to have plants to clean out that particular matter in our houses?
Yes and no. So
Ah,
plants obviously like trees, they clean the air, and we would want that anywhere we were, whether we worked or lived. But there's soil. And in soil, there's always a risk with the moisture of the soil to have mold growth. And mold spores can go out in your house. And people are like, "But I thought I was doing the right thing, making my air fresher." That's why I really advocate for air filters in the home.
yeah.
Air filters clean that out with a machine essentially. And they're probably, I don't know, I haven't done a study to show if plants are better than an air filter, but I'm more on the side of air filters because so many of our patient population have sensitivity to not just pollens, but molds as well. So just
Let's
things to be
just
aware of.
hope my husband does not listen to this podcast and allows me to try to keep not moldy soil,
Yeah,
keeping my plants alive. But that
yeah,
was always something where I thought this is going to help us.
yeah,
This will help us.
yeah. Sometimes we'll tell patients if they have a mold allergy and they have 20 plants, put them outside or put them like in a sunroom or something, but like don't have them in your bedroom because again, you just have to understand that it's not that mold can be kind of a divisive thing that can be terrible for many patients, because they have mycotoxins or toxins that are produced by mold that can affect human beings and mammals. But mold is a part of the earth. And again, you can't get rid of it and you can't avoid it. It's in the environment, it's meant to decompose things over time. Mushrooms are good sometimes. They are used medicinally. Funguses, I mean, they're a part of life. So I don't want to demonize any of those things, but you have to be mindful and careful with certain things about mold.
I like that. All right. To end, just tell listeners 3 things they can move forward with right now, today, for better health.
Today,
Today.
work on a clean environment. Those are things I just talked about: good food, clean water, clean air. The next is to avoid standardly anything that you know causes you to get sick or have a symptom, feel inflamed, or have an allergy. So, whether that be an animal, whether that be a food, or if it's like something environmental, then try to change your environment inside your house with cleaner air, like the air filters that we talk about, or remove the carpets, or don't have the animal in the room. So number 3 would be to detox. So, every day in your environment, you're getting exposed to different toxins, and the body has a natural way to humanly detox. When I say detox, I'm not talking about drug and alcohol detox. I'm talking about your body's mechanism of detoxification, and that is through sweat, that is through good urination and drinking plenty of water and staying hydrated, and that is through bowel movements and moving of your body. So those are the 3 things that I would say. If you're not exercising, start exercising. If you're not sweating, go exercise. If it's too cold and you're not sweating, go sit in a sauna. Drink plenty of water. Do things that help you keep the processes of moving toxins out of your body and amplify that. And most patients do well, then they feel better.
I love that advice. Dr. Seymour, thank you so much for being with us today. This was really
Sure.
insightful.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for having me again.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. Statements and views expressed in this podcast are not medical advice and have not been evaluated by the FDA. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse nor accept responsibility for statements made by guests.